I've been working, as was said, in private equity for somewhat over 30 years. And I've been constantly amazed how exciting a field it is, how it constantly changes and adapts to the way the world's changing. And I hope to bring some of that to the course that you're considering taking. Private equity is really going to be part of your life, one way or the other, no matter which part of the business world you're in. For example, private equity is increasingly a large part of all merger and acquisitions. It takes about 20% of all mergers and acquisitions. You are in a company that is potentially a takeover target for a private equity firm, and it would be something that you might want to think about. There are very few firms that are big enough, are distanced enough that they cannot think about the possibility of a private equity firm making a takeover attempt. Equally, on the other side of the coin, if you are working in a firm and you want to make an acquisition, the chances are quite high that the acquisition you make will be one of the portfolio companies of a private equity firm. Another way that it comes into your life is that since the time of the financial crisis, we've had a lot of turmoil in the capital markets, a lot of volatility, a lot of uncertainty. And as a result, private equity is emerging as a source of capital because the public markets simply aren't working as well as they used to. And you see this in growth capital, and you also see it in turnarounds. For example, the Port Talbot situation in the steel industry, if it gets rescued at all, probably will be rescued as a result of private equity. The other thing that everyone is aware of these days is that it's very hard to find an investment that makes much of a return. In fact, you may be making negative returns. As a result, institutional investors, pension funds, high net worth individuals, family offices are beginning to turn more and more to alternative investments as an asset class to invest in, and private equity is generally top of the list of that. The first thing is we will look at the industry as a whole and discuss the size of the industry, how it's evolved, its importance, and the role it plays in business in general and indeed in society, so that you have a good overview of how the private equity industry matters to the world. Secondly, we will talk in some depth about the two primary types of private equity, that is venture capital and buyouts, and we'll talk about the role that each plays in the economy, the kind of economics that underlie the venture capital and buyout deals, the kinds of risks that you have and how those are offset by the returns that you hope to make, and talk a bit about the skill requirements required of practitioners in those two areas. The third thing that we're going to look at is the private equity investment life cycle, womb to tomb, from the time that you first see the gleam of a potential new deal till the time that you exit the deal and hopefully make a good return on your money. And this time period can last 10 years or even beyond that. And during this discussion, we will talk about how deals are sourced, how you evaluate the deals, how you value deals. And in valuing, one of the things that we will get into and you will do on a hands-on basis is learning how to model private equity deals and how the modeling helps you understand what the value of them is. We will talk about the way private equity fund managers do their job, the way they relate to the portfolio companies that they deal with, and importantly, how they add value. Because if you don't add value to the deals, you're not going to make a good return. And finally, how you realize the value that you've created, because you haven't made any money until you've exited. And we'll talk about the options for doing that. We will discuss the way that private equity funds are structured, why they're structured that way, the economics that underlie the funds, how that translates into making money, and we'll show the actual examples of the sort of returns that you can expect to make in the private equity world and how you benchmark those returns to make sure that you are invested in a good fund or that you're doing a good job. And finally, we will end up talking about the role of private equity as an asset class and how this fits into the portfolio of a typical institutional investor, and discuss the kind of considerations that an institutional investor has to make when they're contemplating investing in private equity. Ultimately, you may find that it's a career opportunity for you. Every year we teach something like 300 students at Cass. Quite a number, all of these students are very interested in moving into private equity, and quite a lot of them do. But on the other hand, we are finding increasingly that experienced and successful executives, after finishing a robust career working in their companies, are turning to private equity as a very attractive second career. And the private equity industry values the skills and experience of these people.